Welcome to 30 Days of Marketing Mavens. 30 days, 30 experts, 30 marketing niches. Brought to you by Profit Master Business Solutions. More leads, more sales, and more revenue for your small or medium-sized business. Click findnewrevenue.com to learn more. Now here's your host, Howard Walpoff.
Thank you again for joining us, 30 Days of Marketing Mavens. Again, I'm Howard Walpoff. This is brought to you by Profit Master Business Solutions. And today, very excited and just a wide range of experience from our guest. He's Dave Kerpen. He's a New York Times bestselling author, a serial entrepreneur, and a global keynote speaker. Let's give you a little bit of his background. He first received media attention for unique sales vending strategies at sporting events. And he's the founder and chairman of Likeable Local, a social media software company serving thousands of small businesses, as well as the chairman and co-founder of Likeable Media, a social media and word-of-mouth marketing agency for big brands. He has a new business that he's launching called Apprentice, which is matching CEOs and college students, giving them a real access to business and giving the business access to social media, hands-on people, plus the things that they're able to do. He has authored 4 notable marketing books and received attention. The connection I have with him is that he had his wedding sponsored and held at the ballpark, the home of the Brooklyn Cyclones, who I used to work for. So Dave, thank you really for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great to be here.
So I know you got a lot of attention within sports. There's always a connection there, but how did you spin that into marketing and social media? How did you really get your start within the industry?
Well, my job when I worked in Boston, I was a ballpark vendor, and I sold stuff up and down the aisles at Fenway Park and the Boston Garden. And up until that job, I wanted to be a teacher. I was studying education and psychology in school. But with my experience as the Crunch and Bunch guy, as I became known in the Boston market, I really fell in love with marketing, with sales, with PR, with promotions, with the whole industry. So after I graduated from college, I couldn't be a ballpark vendor anymore, and I started working at Disney. And while working at Disney in sales, I learned quite a bit about marketing and just really thinking big and thinking creatively. And so a few years later, when I got engaged to my now wife, we both had a pretty good brand marketing and sales background, having both worked in radio sales. And my wife had worked in radio management at the time. So we had some really great client relationships. And we had this idea to get married at a baseball stadium and create a sponsored promotion with it. And we pitched Steve Cohen, the general manager of the Brooklyn Cyclones, as you mentioned. And he said, "This is the craziest idea I've ever heard. But for some reason, I think you guys might be able to pull it off." And he gave us a chance. And we were able to sell all the sponsorship inventory from the game in exchange for wedding goods and services. And we raised $100,000 in kind and raised $20,000 for charity for the MS Society through the David Wright Foundation. And it was a wonderful, wonderful wedding for a baseball fan like me. I was able to have 500 friends and family there, and 5,000 strangers watched the wedding at the end of the game. We lost 2,000 fans, if you can believe that. We had 7,000 in the crowd and only 5,000 stayed for the wedding. But it was an amazing event. We generated a ton of media exposure, about $25 million worth of earned media. NBC, ABC, CBS, CNBC, the New York Times. I mean, there were thousands of internet mentions, blogs, and whatnot. And after the wedding, our vendor said, "This was great. What are you guys going to do next?" And 1-800-Flowers.com, who had sponsored the flowers, and Entenmann's, who had sponsored our desserts, they became our first clients. We said, we can't get married again, so we'll start a company instead. And in the early days of our first company, we were focused on experiential marketing, promotions, out-of-the-box ideas, similar to our ballpark wedding. But when Facebook opened up beyond students in 2007, late in our first year in business, we realized that social media was a much better way to generate buzz and word of mouth than baseball stadium events. On a national or global scale. And so we pivoted to focus on social media marketing back in 2007.
And really, again, you said right at the beginning, you found that opening, and it's really open for everyone to get that type of opportunity for that type of exposure. Although I'm always partial to a good ballpark promotion here and there.
Yeah, I still go to a lot of games, and I'm always looking at promotions, and I'm always looking at the vendors as well. But the reality is that dollar for dollar and minute for minute, if you are a national brand, certainly, and even in many cases local business, there are some amazing things that you can do with social media that you just can't do in offline settings.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. So you really watched the growth of social media. So Facebook, as you mentioned, that growth from the beginnings to where it is now all this time, and Instagram and all the different pieces that go along with a social media marketing mix. Which one is your favorite? Let's start there. What do you find is the most that resonates with people, especially from a brand trying to make a statement?
Well, I'm happy to share my favorite personally, but I will note very, very clearly for the record that the one that works best for one business isn't the one that works best for the next business. And the key is understanding where your audience is, where your customers are, where your prospects are. And so, for instance, just because Facebook is the largest doesn't mean it's where you should be if you're a manufacturing business or a B2B company or a blog, right? So really the social network that I recommend for a business depends a lot on who their prospects are and where they are hanging out. So that being said, the answer to your question is that LinkedIn is my favorite social network. I have generated millions of dollars of revenue from LinkedIn for our businesses, and I have been able to build a really solid platform with about 700,000 followers on LinkedIn. And so for me, it's a terrific community and a very valuable business resource.
And a lot of businesses don't take advantage of what LinkedIn has to offer. I found a lot of business owners aren't even on LinkedIn, but those that are, you see how they're using it if they can find the time. And that comes to a problem where a lot of these small businesses don't have the time to really use social media for themselves and for the companies that really will help build and create some of the types of revenues they're looking for.
Yeah, well, that's a pet peeve of mine, especially when it comes to social media, but really about anything. I hear a lot of small business owners tell me that they don't have time for social media. Well, it's not that they don't have time for social media, it's that they don't see the value in social media, so they don't make the time for social media. We make the time for the things that we see value in our lives. That's like saying, you would never say, I don't have time to see my kids, I don't have time to see my wife. Of course not, because you prioritize it because it gives you value, maybe not money, but intrinsic value. So one of my favorite things to do is to sit down with the CEO and help them understand just how much value can be generated from their time engaged in social media, in content development and content distribution, in networking, et cetera, et cetera. And so there are massive ways to spend, to generate lead and business activity without spending more than, say, 20 minutes a day on social media.
And trying to make sure the right time is there. It can really create dividends of just relationships. Just yesterday, I posted a photo of the rack of potato chips at the Speedway gas station, and had a really fun interaction with their social media staff over the course of the afternoon, which makes me a happier customer because of it. And then people who see that can see that there's relationships to be built through social media.
Yeah. There's massive opportunity still, whether you're a consumer or a business owner, to engage with other businesses and business folks on social media. And my first book was called Likeable Social Media, and we're now in the third edition of that book, and it's a New York Times bestseller in 13 languages. And if you're watching this video and you're still a big social media cynic, it might be worth checking out. There's lots and lots of case studies of examples from businesses large and small, and how they've leveraged social media for their benefit.
So based on the amount of experience you've had really in the trenches with social media, what are the biggest changes that you have seen that companies aren't fully taking advantage of? And I know, unfortunately, it changes day by day and year by year. But over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, what really has jumped out as opportunities that you don't see companies taking better advantage of?
Well, the only one I'll say about large businesses, and then I'll focus on small businesses. Large businesses, much to my surprise, in many cases, still aren't fully staffing community management teams in order to respond to customer comments and feedback. I have a quote that not responding to a customer on Facebook or Twitter is like hanging up the phone on a customer, but hanging up on the phone in the middle of a football field with thousands of fans watching. So I think there's still a massive opportunity to better tap into the online conversation that's going on about you and your brand and your company. For smaller businesses, I would say that there's still many businesses that aren't fully leveraging Facebook and Instagram's advertising capabilities. The story I'd like to tell about just how specific you can be with advertising is that, a couple of years after I started my first business that's now called Likeable Media with my wife, I got excited about the targeting capabilities of Facebook ads, and I took out an ad targeting 33-year-old female married employees of Likeable that lived in Port Washington, New York. And of the billion people on Facebook, only one person saw that ad because only my wife took that criteria. And the ad said, "I love you, Carrie. I'll see you soon." And so obviously that's not of incredible value to you unless you're watching this video right around Valentine's Day and you want to surprise your husband or your wife. But the point is that you can use the targeting capabilities on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn for that matter, to very, very precisely target your audience. So if you're a accounting firm that wants to reach CFOs at the 50 largest companies in your state, you can reach the CFOs at the 50 largest companies in your state. If you are a dentist that wants to reach parents of toddlers in your town, you can reach just parents of toddlers in your town. And whereas before social media, advertising was focused on TV or radio or print or billboards or magazines where you're reaching lots of people, but you're reaching a lot of the wrong people. Now you can focus on reaching just the right people that make sense for your business.
And that is so helpful and so efficient when, especially with smaller businesses trying to stretch their marketing dollars as far as possible. A campaign on radio would really cover too many people in the whole DMA and not really achieve what you want. You may get results, but not the pinpoint results that you're looking for in the specifics of your dollar spent.
Exactly.
A tremendous amount of sense. So just in general, the question that we're asking everyone is, what is your number one strategy that's really working well for you and your clients to achieve their marketing goals right now? And I'd love to get your answer on that.
The strategy that I have written the most about over the years that I still think is the most underrated out there is listening. So listen better to your customers, listen better to your prospects. I know it's very strategic and not tactical at all, but I already gave you some tactics. Listen better, pay attention to what they're saying. Use social media to listen to your customers, your prospects, your competitors, your staff, and use the intelligence that you learn from listening to build a better product, a better team, a better company.
And that's so valuable to just really go back to the basics. And a lot of times when I talk to clients, it's let's clear off the table and just start with the basics. And that is as basic as possible. Just that relationship with your client is so important. And you're only going to know what's going on with it if you're clearly listening to what they're saying.
Yeah, and a lot of people think about social media as the talking part, the what do I post? But the reality is that's only 50% of communication, and the rest is listening and looking up keywords and seeing what people are saying on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and looking for hashtags and looking for your brand name and looking for your competitor's name, and just using these tools to listen to the conversation that's happening out there.
And great words between that and hanging up on someone in the middle of the football field. I think there's really lots of great lessons to grow from that you shared with us in this period of time. So I really appreciate you participating, appreciate sharing your vast knowledge of social media with us today, and just really general thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation with you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and go Jacksonville Iceman.
That's right, Jacksonville Iceman. That's thankfully the Brooklyn Cyclones won their second championship this year. So it's a good year for teams that I have some level of touch with. But thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us again today. Again, 30 Days of Marketing Mavens. We have so much more to share with you. Please follow, and we look forward to seeing you next time.